do my part first, and then.
Okay, the
he
mic's
does
live.
his.
Okay, I'm calling to order a meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee on Tuesday, October 15, 2019 at 7:05 p.m. And I will call the roll. Alderman Tenza. Present. Alderman Laws. Here. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
And Alderman Schmidt is unable to be here this evening, and Alderwoman Melissa Golia, I'm here, and we have a quorum. So, public comment? See no one. This evening, we have a presentation and discussion regarding marketing, arts marketing, and we have Judy Carlson with us, and Paul Shay will be joining us. So, Judy, if you would like to start.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Judy Carlson, and I'm on the Nashua Arts Commission. I've been on the commission for about 2 years, but I've been involved in the arts in Nashua for quite some time. Before I joined the Arts Commission, I was on the board of City Arts Nashua for 5 years and was very involved in many of the things that they do. I was the project manager for the mural over on Temple Street, Vivian's Dream, and did all the fundraising for that, and was also the project manager for the restoration of the mural at Court Street Theater, and also the restoration of the Yankee Flyer Diner mural. So I did all 3 of those and raised the funds for that. And I also initiated the Mary Goyette Arts Award luncheon, which is done between City Arts Nashua and the Arts Commission every year. It's now going to, I think it's 5th or 6th year. But when I joined the Arts Commission, I decided that would be too much. So I resigned from that board and have been active on the Arts Commission, heading up the marketing committee and the workshop committee. And I'm also on the steering committee of the Performing Arts Center and on the new Nashua Community Arts, which is the nonprofit for the Performing Arts Center. I'm on that board as well. But about a year and a half ago, the Arts Commission only is allocated $40,000 a year, in which most of it goes to grants, but about 3 years ago, we set aside $5,000 of that money to do other things like marketing, and got a committee together, and we did a few things for marketing the Arts Commission itself, and then formed what we called the Arts Marketing Steering Committee, which includes myself on that steering committee with Lisa Bissonette from City Arts Nashua, which is, if any of you don't know, City Arts Nashua is very different from the other arts nonprofits. It's an arts service nonprofit. They don't do anything for themselves. They do things mostly for the city. In fact, if you look at all those murals they did and art walks across all the organizations, they have been acting as the fiscal agent for the Performing Arts Center. They were the fiscal agent for the International Sculpture Symposium for many years. But Lisa Bissonette is on this steering committee along with Paul Shay from Great American Downtown, and the former marketing director from Symphony New Hampshire, which is the largest arts nonprofit in Nashua. She's since taken another job, but will be her replacement will be joining the committee. And then we just added Sarah Caesar, who's with United Way, and she's also on the Arts Commission that's going to be joining the committee. Well, anyway, we got together. We were trying to come up with some ideas of what can we do without spending a lot of money to make Nashua more of a destination for the arts? And that has been part of the Arts and Culture Plan that the Arts Commission put together for about, I think it's about 5 years ago, so because we're going into a new phase of updating that plan. And, but again, we had very limited funds. The Arts Commission could put in about $2,000 a year, and City Arts Nashua could, and Great American Downtown Days, but we talked about different things we could do, like maybe putting some presentations together, and came up with the idea that what we really should do is a website that would be like, Visit Monadnock, but Visit Nashua, we call it Experience Nashua Arts, that would bring people to see all the things that Nashua has to offer in the arts. And since the Americans for the Arts every 5 years does a study of the economic impact of the arts, they had just released the findings, and we used them to great advantage when we were putting together information to support the Performing Arts Center, because what they do is they go across, every 5 years, they go across the United States, and towns or regions can join in with them, and they measure organizations spending, they measure audience spending. And since they've been doing it for like 20 years, they have these really good statistical methods that they use that do projections from that. And we have never participated in it. The only cities in New Hampshire that have been Rochester, the Monadnock region, Portsmouth, and Concord. So we met, Marianne actually is also on our steering committee, and we met with both the Economic Development Director and the Community Development Director and the head of the Nashua Regional Planning Commission to discuss, what these different options were. And we all agreed that we should go ahead, see if we could get the funding together to do an off-cycle study with American for the Arts. Now, none of the civic organizations were able to donate any money to the cause, but we actually got a grant, a matching grant from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. And then I think seven different of our members of our arts nonprofit community also donated to it, along with the Downtown Improvement Committee. And I think that was about it. Yeah, there were seven nonprofits, the Downtown Improvement Committee, and the grants from the Charitable Foundation. So we came up with the $9,500 necessary to do it. We're expecting the results. I thought it was going to be in 4 to 6 weeks, because we just finished up, and I was going to give this report on, we just finished up and who all participated and all, because they told us initially it was going to be 6 to 8 weeks before the findings will come in. Well, they just let me know that by the end of next week, they're going to have the findings done. So that's encouraging. But we decided to do it in the region rather than just Nashua, because there aren't that many other nonprofits, but yet they're all, whenever you look at region, as many of these, like the whole Monadnock region was a regional study, we decided to add them in. So we had 34 nonprofits participating, and 23 of them were in Nashua. So we have 23 arts nonprofits here. Now that doesn't include any of the dance schools or the for-profit organizations that are photographers or people who are in the arts and culture segment. That's just the nonprofits, is what Americans for the Arts measure. And of all those participants, 27 organizations actually filled out the organizational study, and 12 did audience surveys. It was very hard to get anybody outside of Nashua into doing any of the audience studies, because they're not here, and I can only contact them 3 or 4 times, and then that's about it, But 12 did audience surveys. They were all in Nashua, and then 11 organizations did both the audience study and the organizational study. Some of the people in the region actually did fill out the organizational study as well. So we collected 821 audience intercepts over a year. And that was a whole lot of work, as it was all done by volunteers. The way it works is it's a one-page form that they fill out at events themselves. They have people in the audience with clipboards, and at breaks or intermission, they pass them out with pens and people fill them out. And it doesn't take long, but even still, that's a lot of work in collecting them all. Luckily, we didn't have to do any data entry. We just sent the forms in as is to Americans for the Arts, and they did all the data entry. That was part of the price of what we paid. And then City Arts Nashua acted as the fiscal agent and did all the collecting of the money and paying of the bills. And as I said, we're supposed to get the results by the end of next week, and we were planning on getting together the steering committee to come up with a publicity plan, how we're going to present the findings and publicize it in November, but it looks like we're going to have to move that meeting up if we're getting the results at the end of next week. So if any of you have any questions on this study, you can definitely go to American for the Arts and see all the data behind how they do the methodology. It's a very well-established study that's been going on for 20 years. I include their logo on this little handout because I love what they say on the bottom of it. It says, creating jobs, generating commerce, driving tourism. And really, that's what the arts do. And we're all anticipating seeing what Nashua's results are. I don't think we're going to come anywhere near the other organizations because our arts organizations are very few who have paid staff. They're all based on volunteers. And many of the events we do aren't bringing people in from outside of Nashua, and that's where you get a lot of spending from when there's actual tourism involved. You get a lot more spending. So that's some of the things we're looking at when we get the results in, and we'll be able to go out and talk to people where the opportunities are in the future. We also wanted to do this study because we wanted a benchmark for the Performing Arts Center. We'll have data now that's collected on what the economic impact is, and then that'll be the benchmark for when the arts and the Performing Arts Center is up and running. In fact, the other thing we're going to get as part of the study is they have what they call a calculator, which allows people who participated in the study to actually go in and see what their particular organization's economic impact is, or if we want to break out just Nashua, we'll see just Nashua's, or if Milford wanted to break out theirs, they could do it that way. There's all sorts of ways you can work the data. They do have the calculator up on their website that you can use if you know certain data, and we actually use the calculator. We have a grant that we're in the process of applying for the Performing Arts Center, and we took the data from the I guess you call it budget that the operator gave us for the 3 years, and looked at when they would be up and running. And then I just took you have to put in the population of your community, and I just took the population of the Nashua region that's as part of the Nashua, the Region Planning Commission. So it's probably extremely, I would say extremely conservative, because I took that number and I took the total expenses that were in that budget and then the attendance, and it cranked out to be almost $4 million, just the center's economic impact in 1 year. And that's I would say a very conservative figure. So if anybody has any questions before I turn it over to Paul, because he's going to talk about the other thing we were working on over the past year, and that's the website and the new arts calendar. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Anyone have questions for Judy? Judy, I just, just so people have a sense of where the audiences were from, for the events or surveys that were handed out, are you able to identify even a handful of those events?
Oh, sure. The majority of them came from Symphony New Hampshire, who does many concerts, Peacock Players, who does even more shows. We did quite a few at, what was a stroll? We did the stroll, yeah.
So we did the Holiday Stroll, the New Muse Festival, I believe New England Roots.
Yeah, we did a few there too, right?
Merrimack Valley Battle of the Bands, the Farmers Market. I think that's the extent of the Great American Downtown
Right.
events.
And then I would say most all of the performing nonprofits here in Nashua participated. Some have smaller audiences, so they didn't have the numbers, but that's where and Art Walk, of course. The most you could put in was 50 at any one event, so Art Walk put in 50. Yeah, they easily got 50 over 2 days. There was only one organization that didn't do it, so, well, two, but everybody else came forward and put some, even the library at their concerts were collecting audience intercepts. So they really participated. Like I said, how many did I say here? 12, 12 organizations did it, and they were all in Nashua.
I just think it's important for all of us and for people who are listening to know that there were some of what we may think of as the more traditional events, the symphony and the stroll, and then some of the other music events and farmers markets. So you are catching kind of a cross section. People who may go to the farmers market may not be somewhere else and vice versa. So I think it's important to know that we got input from people across a variety of venues here in the city.
That's very true, because even when you look at the Bach lunches and the
Right.
things the library does versus when we get 35,000 people swarming on us for the stroll, that's a very different audience.
Right.
So yes, we try to get across as many as possible, both large organizations and some of the smaller ones as well.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
And for the record, and for our transcriptionist, the voice you heard earlier was Paul Shay from Great America Downtown. Paul, thanks for joining us. And Paul is going to do the second part of the presentation for us. So thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm here to talk about the website tonight. I don't know if it's possible to bring the screen down for that, but that visual aid would help.
Yeah, why don't you come over here and I will let you.
Or if you have your phone.
Sorry. Nobody brought that down. Alderman Wilshire, do you know how to do this?
I do not, I'm sorry. I don't.
You know what? I'm sorry. If we had known, we would have hooked this up earlier. I'm not going to be able to do it now.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me just try.
Should I go ask the AV guy for help?
Yeah, maybe. If you would, please. Thank you, Alderman Jettie.
Or if you have your phone. Get it on your phone, too. Yeah, if you have your computer or your phone, you can go to it on there.
The website?
ExperienceNashuaArts.org.
What did you hit?
Said clerk's desk, I hit that and it just
Okay.
broke.
I hit it. I must not have hit it hard enough. Thanks. So if you want to take that over there, you can.
Sure.
And then you'll be able to see. Otherwise, you'll be almost working backwards.
Yeah, while Paul's getting set up, I'd just like to say that this again was a joint effort. The Arts Commission paid to have Clever Light, which they did mostly pro bono. They gave us a really good price on it. and City Arts Nashua and Great American Downtown paid for the calendar because we got a much better calendar. And Great American Downtown paid for the getting the URLs set up. So again, this was a joint effort between, the fundraising that we did within the organizations that could supply some money towards it. It all came out of the community.
And while Paul's getting set up, just for Alderman Tenza, Jetty in-laws, the Americans for the Arts study that was done most recently that included locations in New Hampshire was what, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yes, it was done in 2015 through 2016, and the results were out in 2017.
17. So you may have you may remember reading about it or hearing about it, but you can look for it if you want to have just a sense of the background.
Right, and if you look at the other handout I gave you on the second page, what I gave you is the Arts in New Hampshire was produced by the New Hampshire State Council of the Arts, and they actually did a very good job of collecting all sorts of data about the state overall and what the impact of the arts, both the nonprofit sectors and the for-profit sectors. If you look on the second page, there's information on the fiscal 2015 Arts and Economic Prosperity Study with each of the regions. And it actually has, I think, the URLs on there where you can go to. And that was publicized a lot. It was in New Hampshire Business Review and other places.
Is it Channel? Do you know? Channel.
Yes, and while Paul's still setting up, I'd also like to thank Kath Palmer, who now works for Great American Downtown. And many of you remember Kath from her years on the Telegraph. And she did a miraculous job in getting all this information together for the website in a record time. And we're looking forward to showing it to all the arts organizations. We have presented this to the Arts Commission, but we're waiting until the results come in from Americans for the Arts to present it to the actual community that helped do it.
So are you live yet on the website?
Yeah, if you want to go to it, it's www.experiencenashuaartsaltogether.org.
Maybe for the TV audience, you may want to repeat that.
It's www.experiencenashuaarts.org, or you can do .com. We got both of the URLs.
What's the password for here? Let's take it in.
You'll notice that
Is it Gate City 229?
Yeah.
you'll notice that the other thing that Great American Downtown is doing is that they're actually hosting this website on their website, which made it a lot more economical for us to put one together until we get to the point where we can afford funding to do a separate website. So that's why when you look at the logo, it looks very similar to the, Downtown Nashua logo. We did it so it would look compatible when somebody jumps from Experience Nashua Arts back, or they can go from the Downtown Nashua to the Experience Nashua Arts. There's a link on going both ways.
While we're waiting, does your organization provide coordination to avoid different groups scheduling their performances on the same nights? That
Well,
type of thing?
That's a good question. One of the things we started at the Arts Commission under the workshop program 3 years ago, for the first time ever, we got all of the Nashua arts organizations together and had a collaborative workshop. And that's an ongoing tradition. We're still not at the point where we have eliminated all conflicts, because in some ways that's impossible. And in some ways, we may not want to. We may want to take weekends when there's more than one thing going on that are compatible and promote it as a special weekend. And we are now talking about having that workshop earlier in the year, because by the time we have it, people already have their dates set. And it's to collect for an overall calendar, which we keep on the Arts Commission website and we hand out to the media. But that's a very valid question, something we're still working on. And of course, there's a lot of concern about, with the different organizations that use the Keith, that it's been difficult booking with them, because the high school always comes first, of course. I mean, the school always comes first. But it is something we're looking at, even moving up earlier so we can avoid it as much as possible, or plan together to have a special weekend where more than one thing's happened. We have learned that oftentimes when there's more than one thing on a weekend, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. For example, Peacock Players is opening their production this weekend of their latest show, and they've done that before on Art Walk weekend, and they opened Willy Wonka Art Walk weekend, and there's all sorts of special events during Art Walk, and with the characters coming out. And then they also promote Art Walk as Art Walk After Dark and promote going to the show. So it's worked out well in many instances, and it gets all the different arts organizations together, talking to each other and communicating with each other.
Thank you. Okay, I think Paul has it up and we're ready. And
Yes,
of course, the information we needed was right under
the keyboard.
Paul's left hand, because it was on the keyboard where he was resting his hand. So if you're caught in a jam, now you know where to look.
So thank you so much for having us here to show off this website and talk about the value of the arts here in Nashua. We have been working on this for a good bit of time, perhaps a year and a half, and more recently, with the addition of Kath Palmer to the Great American Downtown staff, it's really come a long way in a shorter period of time. So we've been working collaboratively with the Nashua Arts Commission, City Arts Nashua, Symphony New Hampshire, and a variety of other folks to take input and to work to build out the concept for this site. When you think about cities in New Hampshire and reasons to visit them, you look at Portsmouth, and a big draw there is the history and the seacoast. They lean heavily into that. You think about Concord, New Hampshire, and just the capital of the state and all the activity that comes with that, along with their performing arts venues are big attractants. When we think about Nashua, we think about the arts as one of the stronger aspects of Nashua as a place to visit. And we believe that kind of building a site where we can highlight all of that, because there are such a diverse group of organizations that are putting on great content that people might like to visit and come check out. Having all that information into one place, and hopefully we'll work in the near future to have a complementary publicity effort around the website. All of that combined will help to drive engagement and help to drive visits here in the city. And so the concept that we've come up with is the Experience Nashua Arts website. So you can go to experiencenashuaarts.org or .com. We've also acquired experiencenashua.org and .com, in case someone forgets to leave that last word on there when they go to type in the URL, and it will help them to land on the right site. So this website, as Judy said, it's a microsite that lives within the downtownnashua.org website. It helps us to leverage the infrastructure of the website, including the build, the theme, the navigation, and hosting, et cetera, to kind of give us an economic opportunity to build this site for not a great cost. If we were to build this site out from scratch, we might be looking at somewhere in the ballpark of $4,000 to $6,000. But with support from the Nashua Arts Commission, we've basically produced this site, not including the regular subscription to the calendar item, but we've built it for under $1,000, which is a great use of funds. So this site is developed in a way that it provides a window into various facets of our arts community. When you land on it, the first thing that pops up is a featured events slider. So this uses the calendar functionality of the website to parse out a handful of hand-selected high-profile arts events that we want to make sure that people get in front of their eyes when they land here on the website. So things like symphony concerts, some of the larger festivals that are coming up, and some of the new and exciting things that are happening here in the city. So as you scroll down, it provides you the opportunity to jump to the full arts calendar. So we have created, and by we, I truly mean Kath Palmer, has created a navigation within the calendar that parses out all arts-oriented events. So not only do we have a full central community calendar where people can contribute content, but as the event is submitted and reviewed and approved on our end, Kath identifies the arts-oriented events to tag them specifically, and so we can parse out an arts calendar. And so when you click on this, it will go to that, and I'll show you that in a moment. We also have we have music, theater, galleries, and public art. The display on the monitor here is a little funny. So the theater with the white and the yellow is not showing up quite as well as it does on a mobile device or a laptop, if you will. So when we go to the music site, or the music page rather, it brings you to various vignettes of organizations that produce music type events and programming. It gives you a nice little splashy welcome, along with, if you would like to find something immediate and find live music tonight, this will bring you to a listings, and the listings is actually broken out to just display, and this is part of a bigger listings application within the website, but it breaks out the venues that you might be likely to find live music at, as well as the organizations in the city that produce live music. And so if someone's looking for live music tonight, that's their set of likely options. As you scroll down further, we've got the New Muse Festival, Street Pianos, and New England Roots Festival. We've got the First Music concert series, which is a really great series in a beautiful church up at the top of Main Street. The Granite Statesman. We've got the Merrimack Valley Flute Choir, Nashua Chamber Orchestra. And so each of these organizations are featured. There's a brief description of what they're all about. And then someone can navigate through to either their website, or if they have a social media presence, we've also linked that too. We've got the public library, summer fun. We've got a nice big breakout feature for Symphony New Hampshire, because they've got a lot of great content and great programming. So we brought that front and center there. And so that's the music site. The theater site, as you may know, Nashua has an abundance of community theater programming put on by a variety of organizations. And the shows are really extraordinary. Even the Peacock Players, who is youth theater, they have a professional mentality and do 2-week run. They try to put the kids through the full professional experience, and the quality of the productions really shows that. Actors, singers, Phil's Keefe Auditorium, brings in big audiences for really great shows. And so we've got the actors, singers featured here.
And I'd just like to add that both the actors, singers, and especially Peacock Players constantly win at the New Hampshire Theater Awards every year. They're very professional organizations and do very quality productions.
I think I went once a couple years ago to the NHTAs, and they won 8 awards that night. So they're really a feather in our cap, so to speak. So we've got the Nashua Theater Guild featured. We've also got the Peacock Players. And should additional organizations come and go from time to time, we've had a number of different good groups, Genesis Theater, Stagecoach Productions. If they come back into production, we can go ahead and add a feature for them as well. And so that's our community theater page.
Then each of them also have links to where you can purchase tickets and find out more about each of the productions.
Yeah, so if we click through, someone is on the website, they see Peacock Players, and they'd like to check out what they've got coming up, it'll go right through. Cleverlight built their website quite recently, and it really came out nicely. So it's a great thing. We also work with these community theater groups and various arts groups, and each year the Arts Commission will host a arts publicity workshop, and we'll be doing that again soon. We'll get together and share with folks how they can take advantage of the website, walk them through how to submit calendar items, so that not only are we kind of cultivating this content and bringing it into the website, but organizations will also contribute, and they do. We've got a lot of great content submitted by Symphony New Hampshire, Nashua Chamber Orchestra, actors, singers, Peacock Players, the list goes on. They're already actively engaged with the calendar functionality, which is great. So we also have a galleries tab. So the galleries tab is a breakout within the listings. And so this is a set of arts galleries, both public outdoor galleries as well as private shops and nonprofit galleries. So if somebody's looking to check out the galleries in the city, it also gives you this little map. So if you're walking about downtown and you're on your mobile browser there, you can kind of see where you are on the map, and you can also see where you might be able to check out galleries in relation to your location. We also have the public art page, which is semi under construction. So we are working with the city GIS department. Judy and a lot of folks, Positive Street Art, have put in a lot of great content and submitted it, Nashua International Sculpture Symposium, to help populate this map that is a GIS tool. And so we have the ability to, and it's being refreshed right now, so that's why this is a static image that demonstrates what the map will look like. But we'll have the ability to embed an interactive map within this page that GIS has built, and it gives you two main ways to organize the data. So if you click on murals and street art, it'll bring you to a map that looks like this, and it will identify the location of all of these different pieces of public artwork. You can click on the image on the map or on this item right here, and it will break out to give you more information. And so once that, we've been working with Pam in GIS, and so once that is updated on the back end within the map application, we will update this content to have that loaded up on the website too. We have just recently been awarded a grant to support a public art tour that uses the mobile app districts. And so what we are working to do is organize a set of 2 interactive public art tours, one along Main Street primarily, and one that will be through the Riverwalk area. It'll be a little bit more of a physical challenge to do that tour. But what we are hoping to accomplish is having two sets of tours that are digestible in 60 to 90 minutes, and use the district's functionality to create this tour in a way that, as you're using the mobile application and you approach the object in the real world, it will trigger your app with a special Bluetooth beacon that's located near the piece of public artwork, and then it will play an audio track for you. So similar to a museum self-guided audio tour, but with a little bit of an automated function in that as you approach the item, the description starts to play automatically. So we'll be doing that in Spanish and English, and that will be linkable through this page as well.
And Paul, if I may, I think, we think of public art, be it the murals, other street art, and the sculptures that we have from the Sculpture Symposium. I think many of us who live in Nashua just kind of take them for granted. Like, oh yeah, that's great, we have the Sculpture Symposium and we have 3 more sculptures. Or, oh, that's great, we have another mural. But it's art that's so accessible. You don't have to pay $50 for a ticket. You can come and enjoy it. So it draws people here just, if nothing else, for the fact that they can enjoy that, but there's no price of admission. And earlier this summer, we actually saw a couple taking pictures in front of murals, and they were here checking out the murals and getting photos of themselves in front of all of the murals.
That's awesome.
And they were from Lowell or Lawrence, I can't remember which, but they had come up here because they had heard about the murals. So I think that even though it's free to access it and experience it, it still supports economic vitality downtown. If they're coming, they have a cup of coffee afterwards, or they say, oh, I'm going to come back here and we'll have dinner, or we'll stay for lunch or whatever. It's generating familiarity in a way that you don't have to commit. It's not like paying $30 to go into a museum. I can come, I can experience it, and then maybe I'll come back and do something else if I have a good experience.
Absolutely.
So I think what you're talking about doing with the district is great. Yeah, Judy.
I think, I just want to reinforce what you're saying, that there's a lot of anecdotal evidence and even some statistical evidence that cities that have public art are places where people want to visit and want to live, because it actually shows that people who live in those cities care about them, and they care about the quality of life, and that public art makes art experiences available to everybody. Nashua just 2 years ago was awarded by the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts the award at the Governor's Awards every year of being New Hampshire's most creative community. And it was for a variety of reasons. I mean, we are home to Symphony New Hampshire, Peacock Players, and the fact that we do have a very active library and a summer fun. And on top of all that, Great American Town, all they do in City Arts with Art Walk, which is the largest arts festival in southern New Hampshire. But the public art was a big part of it. And many people do not know that we have more public art in Nashua than anywhere in New Hampshire, probably cumulatively in New Hampshire. And it is a draw when people learn about it. So that's one of the things that we're going to make sure that we get out there, is knowing these kind of things. And we're going to be working with the New Hampshire Bureau of Tourism as well when we get together after the results come out. And we put our publicity and presentation plan together.
Yes, Alderman Wilshire.
I just wanted to say, this is great. You have people that come into town and say, hey, what can we do this weekend? Just go to the site. I mean, it's all there. I think this is wonderful. And kudos to you who put it together.
Yeah, it's really been a group effort, and to kind of jump on with what Marianne was saying about a couple being down here taking pictures. We had a couple who was up from New Jersey. They were exploring historic ballparks. and they popped into the office and they said, "Hey, we've got 45 minutes. What can we do?" And we were like, "Well, we're actually working on this little art tour. We have these sheets of paper that are kind of the handouts that we showed to our board for like the samples, and so we photocopied them, gave them these little snippets of public art that they could check out in the short time that they were here, and they were out there, and yeah, absolutely, it's a big driver in engagement on a number of fronts.
Yeah, and I think 3 or 4 years ago, Kathy Hirsch and I, when we were both on the board of CRS Nashua, we put together a little tour for the Chambers leadership group
Right.
that they've been using every year. It was just paper, and then Kathy would go along on the tour, or somebody would, and give all the background on each of the sculptures and each of the murals. But people are very interested in public art, and you drive around a city and it stops your eye. My sister lives in Philadelphia, and they have more public art in Philadelphia than anywhere because they actually had a huge long-standing program where it, 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 they have hundreds of murals on the wall, and they had apprentices from the University of the Arts working with known artists from around the country doing these murals, and it's something that defines Philadelphia as well. So the more art you have, you could go to Cambridge, and yes, they have more public art than we do in Cambridge, but they also have a required percentage for the arts in Cambridge, which nobody in New Hampshire has. So it's really quite a amazing feat that through this whole public, civic and private collaboration that we do in Nashua, where nonprofits and the public get together and help do the fundraising and help place these things around the city, that we've been so successful in that collaboration, and that's why we were recognized by the State Council of the Arts.
Okay. Thanks. Alderman Jettie and then Alderman Tenza.
So, when you talk about the economic impact of the arts in Nashua, I can't help but feel that, the people that benefit the most from the economic impact are the restaurants and the bars and, that type of commercial establishment. And I see that you've got a listing for them on this website. Have you tried to, or do you charge them for listing or charge them for advertising on the website?
So for the in what you're talking about is the breakout to listings. So because this is a microsite within the Great American Downtown website, when you go to click to some of the other items on the navigation, you'll come out of the Experience Nashua Arts page to the downtownnashua.org page. And so in the listings, we work with the downtown restaurants and shops each year to produce the Taste of Downtown. And that event generates about $32,000 in income, about a net of 27 to support our programming and operations. And we do partner with the restaurants and shops on a number of different things throughout the year. And so for us to have a nice, robust set of listings where they're all included there, I think is a nice give back for what they do to support us. We have the ability to feature listings within that. So when someone goes to restaurants, you'll see that there are a couple that appear as featured. And what we do is leverage the ability to feature the listings as a value add for sponsorships for various programs. So you'll see Riverside Barbecue is up there, and they have supported the outdoor music festivals and helped to fund some of the audio production for performances. And so though we have that ability and it's something we've considered, we do want to include all of the downtown businesses and then use the feature to give back for either sponsorship or some other kind of in-kind value that they give. We've, in addition to various listings on this homepage here, we have also added within the listings the location of the city parking lots, so that people can jump right to that. And we've also added, and we've got some work to do to populate it, but I'll show you. We've also added a section where people can find hotels. And so, though within the Great American Downtown website, a lot of the listings and focus are downtown centric, in the context of the Experience Nashua Arts website, we have gone broader in our focus to include the whole Nashua community. And in a similar fashion, because of course there are no hotels downtown yet, right?
Not that we know of.
Not that we know of. We will be going broader with including opportunities for lodging. One of the things that we've talked about is a possible way to fund the long-term hosting costs and various other costs, and perhaps even some proportion of the collaborative marketing effort that will continue. We've talked about perhaps monetizing the hotel listings to have features. So right now, we have the ability to really build these out with a lot of great photos and in a way that kind of brings prominence to that particular listing. And so as we continue to build the site and look for creative ways to leverage it to allow us to do more, that along with other ways of using the featured tool will be something that we'll look to.
Yeah, and we're also looking into not only hotels, but Nashua has a number of bed and breakfasts as well. Some of them are close to downtown, and we'll probably be including those as well.
If I may, I know Alderman Tenza and Alderman Laws want to speak, but just to add to the economic impact piece, I think naturally we jump to restaurants in terms of where the impact is. Paul mentioned parking, so there'll be some parking revenue. But the other thing is, if for every event, people are printing programs, and hopefully they're doing it locally, using our local printers. There's a need for technical people, be it for sound and light, and so they're hopefully contracting with local people. There may be people in certain businesses that are working overtime. So there's that piece of the economic impact also that goes a little deeper into the community that isn't always a natural association and beyond restaurants and lodging. So when you look at the Arts Alive and the American for the Arts studies that were done, and they look at the impact of the arts from an economic perspective, they break out some of these other things. You know, you're out and I'm going to buy a new tie, or I'm going to buy a new handbag, or I'm going to buy a new pair of shoes, or I happen to be somewhere shopping and I see something I really like that I don't see in my community. So there's kind of that ripple effect. And as Judy mentioned, we're finding that if we do multiple things at one time, we keep people here. We maybe have a greater diversity of people, and the longer they're here, the more they may end up spending too. So we're in the process, I think, of looking at that a little deeper, but also from what we've heard from other communities, there is that bigger impact, and that's what we're also
Right.
thinking about. Yeah, Judy, and then
And you even think about, well, the plays that are put on and set building and going down to Home Depot and buying, supplies to build their sets. I mean, it just goes on endlessly when you think of what the organizational spending is to produce these kind of things that they do. There's all that economic impact because they're buying all these things locally.
right, yeah. Alderman Juddy wanted a follow-up,
I-
and then Alderman Tenza.
I was just trying to make the point that, that this website is, an opportunity for people to make people aware of what they're selling.
Oh, yes,
And I think it's advertising in a way, and I would think it would be an opportunity for, you know, them to pay something for the benefit that they're receiving, um, you know, by being listed on the website and people being pointed to their businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And once it's up and running and we have some data on how many people are looking at it, we may well look at that as an opportunity.
Yeah, and just to circle back to the contribution, because that's a very valid point that restaurants, especially, but a broad set of small businesses benefit from these programs. If you were to estimate the value of product donated for the Taste of Downtown per restaurant, it's probably somewhere in the ballpark of $600 to $800 that they put forward, not including the man hours that go into it. And then if you look at an event like the Dinner on Main Street, you've got chefs that are probably giving somewhere in the ballpark of 60 hours each to the process, donating some product. So we do get a great amount of support. It's certainly a two-way street.
Alderman Tenza?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the website looks fantastic. It really looks like it's going to be a great resource for the arts community in downtown. Um, and you talked a little bit about a broader marketing plan. Yeah, I travel up to Concord a lot for work, and I stop at the rest area on 93, and they have the rack cards there, and I see rack cards for places in Concord, in Manchester. They even have one there for the prison industries shop. You can get more information about that than you can about what's going on in downtown Nashua. So I'm just kind of curious. I think the website's great and will be a resource for people online who are in town looking for things to do. And I don't think this is necessary. I think it's a much broader discussion about what the city can be doing to market itself, and not just from the arts community perspective. But have you had discussions or things going on that I just don't know about that?
I would say this discussion has been going on back as far as our previous economic development director
Mhm.
back then. And I have the same concerns you have, to the point of where I've pulled things from the racks and brought them back here and said, what is this? And I think Judy can tell you a little bit about the ins and outs of getting things up there. But it's certainly something we're all very well aware of, and recognize that we need to have a bigger presence up there. Judy?
Yes, when we did our first collaborative arts meeting with all the arts organizations, it was facilitated by Jerry Lupi, who's the director of the State Council of the Arts, and came up with a little laundry list. And high on the laundry list were, rack arts, not only for up in Concord and the other places, but local hotels. And it is on our list. We just prioritized our list because we have such limited funds, and all of this is done by volunteers who have other full-time jobs plus. And now that we have the American for the Arts study done and this website well along its way, it's high on the list of priorities. I've already had some discussion with the city, and it looks like we may be able to print them through the city's printing. And it's a matter of sitting down and working out, how are we going to do it? Are we going to do it by music? Are we going to do it by these categories? We now have a website because we had to have a website they could go to before we even did any of these kind of handouts. But it is high on the list, and there are some complications about getting them around and stocked. But it's all doable, and it's high on our list. And part of what we would be doing is meeting with the Department of Tourism, and they have other ideas. They have their own website they have bus tours that we can piggyback with. I mean, there's all sorts of exciting things we can do, and that's going to be on the agenda of what comes, not only how we can publicize what we've done with the study and the website, but what comes next. What are the plans for what comes next?
And if I remember correctly, part of getting information at those sites is getting it approved. It has to go through the state to be approved to be up there
Right.
before we can put it there. And I know a number of years ago, the emphasis seemed to be on sports and outdoor recreation, and that seems to be shifting. And so you see more things about the arts and events up there. But for a number of years, what I was told was that the interest was really on having information up there about recreation and sports and those sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, that has changed a lot with the new economic development director at the state level. And also, the requirements are a lot easier than they have been in the past. So we've been looking into all those things.
Yeah. And follow up, Alderman Tenza?
And just to follow up again, I mean, I don't think it should fall on the National Arts Commission to be doing this necessarily. I think it should be part of a larger strategic plan for the city, because it is, a lot of different businesses and organizations benefit from that work. So I would think it's something that the city could work on behalf of the business community, and try to promote that, and just as a service that we would provide. So I'm hoping that we make some progress on that, and it benefits everybody. And it would seem to me that at some point the city should think about hiring some type of a marketing firm to do some marketing for us. And that would be and they would be responsible for getting the rack cards out there and doing all that. So maybe it's something to think about in the next budget cycle or so.
Right. And I think your last few words, in the next budget cycle, in any budget cycle, I think that's critical. And I think that what this project that we're hearing about tonight does is what I think we do well in Nashua. We collaborate well. And so I think this has given us a nice base. And now for the city to maybe collaborate in that marketing piece, using this to provide some baseline information and help organize it, is a natural next step if the funds allow it. And I think, when you look at the strategic planning goals that the board's adopted, this very nicely fits in to several of those goals. So Alderman Laws has been waiting patiently, and I did not forget.
Wait on it. It's fine. First off, thank both of you. And I think too few people appreciate, or at least are aware, that there are citizens like you who are dedicating so much of their lives to making the city better. And it really means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to everybody else in here. So anecdotally, the last 20 years of bartending, at least 50% of the time, the phone rings at the bar, it's someone asking me if we have live music that night.
Yep.
Right? Then every time I've been on a website similar to this in another city, it's because I'm traveling there and I'm Googling, what's the deal, where's the live music? So I'm wondering if there's a plan in the future to kind of coordinate all of the live music of the local area restaurants and bars. And it would also be a great way to generate traffic to the website, because people, it's one of the main things that people would be searching for, right? And it would bring them to you.
Yes. So one of the things that we do to complement our marketing effort, in addition to managing the website, is we cultivate a newsletter that goes out each week that features somewhere, I'd say, between 5 and 8 live music performances, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. What we do have the ability to do within this website is accept submissions, and it's one of those things where we can put the word out there and make people aware of the opportunity, but the extent to which they leverage it, is another conversation. I believe that we will renew our efforts to make businesses aware of the opportunity that exists within the community calendar. And we'll continue to put out the newsletter, which really is, and that's something that Kath each week goes through Facebook events. She'll go to various businesses that have live music, go to their websites, check their calendar, and kind of cultivate a nice bit of content for people. Yeah, it's a really great thing, and it's especially important to support that aspect of Nashua's nightlife because it's a tough business, and so the more that we can do to kind of highlight that stuff, and the more that it thrives, the better off we'll be overall.
Right, and that's why that live music button is right on the top of the music section, where you can actually go and see what's playing where at the different venues. And that's why we have this bar on the bottom where you can subscribe to Great American Downtown's newsletter. City Arts Nashua does a very similar newsletter as well, where they collect and once a week put out a newsletter, or once a month, excuse me. They put out once a month. Great American Downtown does it once a week, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are two opportunities to subscribe where you're going to see a lot of this stuff. And we all know that, the nightlife in Nashua and calls a lot of people, and that's why we made sure that that button was right at the top.
If I may, I just want to speak to Alderman Tenz's question in regard to a broader marketing effort. If you haven't had the opportunity, the City Service Advisory Committee, which preceded the Downtown Improvement Committee, it was set up with, I believe, the intention to be the organization that is engaged with the Central Business Service District, which it was determined after kind of studying the issue that because of the height of buildings in downtown Nashua, there's not the density of property value like Manchester has that lends well to the Central Business Service District. The additional minuscule tax on these properties that builds up and then helps to fund services more locally. Anyway, I'll dial it back. The Service Advisory Committee generated this great report in 2010 called Cultivating Vitality. And we have made great strides since that report was published through various efforts, including the Downtown Improvement Committee, including the Nashua Arts Commission, including the development of City Arts and Culture Plan, which is in the process of being refreshed, I understand. The Cultivating Vitality document recommended an increase in support for community events, which I believe the amount was $70,000 in all sources combined. Over the past 4 years or so, the city has pretty much gotten up to the point where across various bits of funding and support for different organizations and efforts, we've gotten to the recommended mark in that section of the report. The other recommendation was for a $50,000 to $60,000 annual amount of funding to be set aside for marketing effort. And so, though the Arts Commission has kind of led this initiative to bring more marketing about with a shoestring budget, we do have a lot of room to grow there, and that planning document really gives some good support and food for thought in that area, as well as a lot of other areas. It's got a lot of great insight. So if you haven't read that, that would be a good thing to request
Right,
and check it out.
If you go to the existing Arts and Culture Plan, there's a whole section on marketing it with recommendations. And we all have felt, and the arts community have felt, that none of our arts communities by themselves can afford to market very much. In fact, many of the grants we give out, and the Arts Commission has a limit on it, $5,000 per organization is the max grant they can get. We only have $35,000 that we give out every year. And I would say over the years, Now, I would say close to 75% of that money goes to marketing in the individual organizations because they know the importance of it. And it's been said over and over again in all the meetings we have is what do we need most? Get the word out that Nashua is a destination for the arts. We need marketing support. So anything that the city could do to look at that, because you can't come up with a real comprehensive plan unless you do hire an agency that's has the experience in marketing cities and marketing events, and there are plenty of them around. And to do it right, we would need to go to that level. But until we can, until the funding's there, we're going to do the best we can with what we have to move it forward as much as we can.
Thank you. Any other questions,
Yep.
comments?
One more piece. I'd just like to
Yeah.
show the arts calendar page. And so this is a great tool. Judy found the plugin for this through the Monadnock Arts Alive website, and we've adopted the tool and made it our own. And so for this, it's the arts calendar breakout. And so we have a featured slider at the top. And then as you get into it, a lot of different community submitted content. And so we've got chamber orchestra, the Addams Family, All That Sass is a dance class at the Arlington Street Community Center, and then all sorts of other great content. So that class happens a lot. As we bring this tool to more people to contribute to it, and I especially like the idea of getting the places that host live music to engage with this. The content will become more diverse, but as it is, we've already got some great stuff on there. And then there's the broader calendar. And so if someone goes to the community calendar, again, there's the featured slider there, and then there's even more content. So we actually pull from the Arlington Street Community Center calendar on the city website. We pull from the Make It Labs calendar automatically. We pull from various city committees that might be tied in with the downtown. Nashua Arts Commission meetings appear here, Downtown Improvement Committee meetings appear here, and so on and so forth. And so it's a really great tool, not just for people, the calendar, not just for people in the arts community, but in a broader sense, it's really a community resource.
Alderman Loss.
If someone's watching this and they are interested in having their information added to the calendar, can they just contact you from the link on the website?
Absolutely. And they can even, they don't even need to reach out to a person, which is great for us because we only have so much time. But they can go ahead and go to either the arts calendar or they can go to downtownnashua.org/calendar. And either way, if they click on this and submit an event, it will give them the ability to set up their own account within Timely, which is the calendar resource that we use. Then they can submit their content, edit their content. If you have like some sort of ticket link, it has the ability to include the ticket link within your posting. You can put engaging graphics, and then all of that goes through Kath Palmer. She'll get an email. It'll say, so-and-so has submitted this event. She goes to it, gives it a glance, make sure that it's appropriate for the calendar. We'll get some very peculiar stuff from way outside of town, and so they've just got to submit it, and usually within 2 to 3 business days, we'll have the opportunity to review it, and it will go right up onto the calendar here.
Excellent.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes.
I'm very
Alderman
excited
Wilshire.
about this. I think it's wonderful. I think it's good for the organizations that have things to promote, that it's all there in one place. I think it's great. Thank you for doing this,
Thank you.
all of you.
And I would just say, listening to those discussions, it really has been a collaborative effort. And Paul alluded to, this balancing of we're doing things for the area, but yet it's Great America Downtown is kind of the focus really of the parent organization. But I think there's been a nice balance of downtown and the area and working it together. And I know that's been a result of your effort working with folks to bring that about. So
Right, and
thank you.
I'd just like to add to that.
And this is Judy. Judy, I
Yes.
realize
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
have not been introducing yourself. And so for the transcriptionist, this is Judy
Okay,
Carlson's
sorry.
voice.
Um,
Yes.
I really want to thank all the people who have participated in that. And we have to thank the Great American Downtown Board too, because Paul
Right.
had to go to his board because they are very focused on just downtown Nashua.
Right.
And before we even decided that we would use them to host this website, he had to go and get permission that it was okay with his board, because what we're doing is a bit broader than what the focus of their board is. So it was very generous of their board to do that. So, and I also want to thank you, Marianne, for being a member of this committee.
Oh,
It's
you're
made
welcome.
it's made a big difference because it's acknowledgement by the city that arts and culture are important to any city, to its economic growth, to have somebody who's involved on the Board of Aldermen in economic planning and development on our little steering committee. So I want to thank you as well.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for all of your efforts. And I know I said to Judy, are we still meeting? And she's like, yeah, we're just doing all this behind the scenes work. So I know there's been a lot of work going on. And thank you to everyone who was out there collecting the information and, working with audiences to make sure we got some nice samples of input to put the report together. So thank both of you for your leadership in this. Do we have anything else for our speakers? Okay, well then, communication, we have none. Unfinished business, none. New business, none. Public comment, the public is sitting with us at the Horseshoe. Remarks by the alderman, any other remarks? There's no need for a non-public session. Do I have a motion? Alderman Laws. Motion by Alderman Laws to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned at 8:22, and I will turn the mics off in a